Hey everybody, today Rahdo runs down Posthuman Saga, which is a post-apocalyptic Euro-style auction set collection push-your-luck adventure game where 1 to 4 players take on the role of survivalists whose job it is to map out the territory surrounding what might be the last fortress of humanity on the planet, for all we know. And the way it works is, over the course of 15 rounds, we'll either have to deal with a bunch of calamitous events, which sometimes are better for some players than others, or more often engage in auctions. What happens is there are always a set number of terrain tiles and scavenge type tokens, and in a round where there's an auction, players are bidding to be able to grab the right combination of stuff first so they can add these tiles and tokens to their own supply. Because later in a round you will do one of 4 actions: camp, map, explore, or forage. And if you're going to explore or forage, you take these tiles, put them on the board, along with hopefully a matching scavenging site. You can get bonus points, but if you don't have match, you can still put non-matching ones out there. And you move into these new areas, and if you forage, well, you get a lot more resources to stay alive. But the real name of the game is exploring these locations, because that means, depending on how dangerous the area is, this is a really dangerous area with a 5, see, this one's not quite so dangerous as a 4. Depending on how dangerous it is, you might run afoul of mutants, which leads to a whole little combat minigame I'll talk about in a second. But if you're lucky, instead of having to fight these guys who slowly over the course of the game might mutate you, you can see I've already gotten hyper-focus, a good stable mutation, but also some slicer blades, an unstable mutation. So I'm getting more mutinous as the game goes on the more I fight. But instead of fighting, you might have little story adventures on the locations you get to, where one player reads a little narrative vignette out, and then you have to make choices, and you have to do skill checks to see if you can beat the narrative chapters. And the way that works is with a push your luck game where the more tokens you draw out of a cup or a bag, the more successes you hopefully get, because you need to get a certain number of them. But you keep pushing your luck, drawing more and more. Oh my gosh, 2 successes, but you always have to work 3 successes. Can I get the 4th success I need? Oh no, this one's not. This is a botch because my skill level in whatever I'm testing wasn't high enough. So I got a botch, and if I get another botch, it might blow up in my face. So the narrative events have this little push your luck game that's very, very cool and clever. The way combat works is really brilliant as well. When one of these mutants jumps you out in the wilderness, like say this spitter here, basically, each player has a deck of combat cards. Some of them are good, like say dodging and striking. Some of them are okay, like just a dodge. And some of them are terrible, like missing. Now, you find out who you're going up against, and there is a ranged attack round followed by a melee fight. Hopefully you can take them out from a long distance by spending ammo and using your ranged weapons. But if you can't do that, you can get up close and personal with, say, a knife or a sledgehammer or whatever other weapons you might find along the way, because there's all kinds of equipment and upgrades you can get over the course of the game. But the interesting thing is, whether you're shooting or whether you're punching, when it comes to you to make a choice, you pick one of your combat cards, and hopefully, it does some damage. Like this lucky shot will do some damage, plus the potential to do more damage. You pick one, and this card is ultimately going to get exhausted, and you won't get it again until later on you rest up by camping. So you play one card that is by your choice, and then you take the rest of your deck and pick one randomly. Which is, so you're always hoping not to get those misses. You're hoping to get another good one, like a miss. All right, so my lucky shot was followed by a miss, which meant I had 1 definite success and 1 partial success and a failure there. Was that enough for me to do damage? Well, it depends. But I could have used these in melee combat as well, which would have given me 1 maneuver but not another. Now, the interesting thing is, after combat is over, whether you win or lose, whether you run away or the mutant runs away, the card you chose is gone. You won't be able to get it again. It's exhausted. The card that was random goes back into your hand. So over time, the good cards are gone and the lousy cards tend to stick around, which is why sooner or later you need to camp to rest up so that you can get some of your cards back. But when you're camping, you only get so many recovery points. So do you recover cards, or do you recover health or morale, or do you recover boost cubes that can give you all kinds of benefits as well? So the combat is incredibly fast-paced and interesting because it's not just a dice roll 'em up. You're actually making interesting decisions about hand management as you go through attrition throughout the course of the game. And meanwhile, when you fight these mutants, well, they roll dice at you, trying to take you out and turn you into one of them over the course of the game. So, you've got combat, you've got push your luck with narrative events. And the last thing is, the reason you're doing all this, like I said, is we're trying to explore the wilderness. There are two main ways to score points in this game. Everybody starts with a mission that is secret. Nobody knows what your mission is, but what you're trying to do, in this case, I'm trying to find the long-lost seed vault, which means I have to explore a forest, something else, and then some farmlands. And that'll be the first step. When I found an outpost, but then to actually find the vault itself, then I have to explore more. I have to explore mountains, a city, something else, and then finally a second forest. If I can do all of these explores before time runs out, then I'll find this and I'll score a lot of points and I'll trigger a story conclusion to the intro that was introduced here and potentially have more narrative push your luck adventures. So that's one way I can score points, by auctioning to get the right tiles so that I can explore as needed. Because remember, it's all driven by an auction. You want to get the right tiles at the right time so you can explore the right locations. But remember, when you're auctioning, not only are you grabbing these tiles, you're grabbing these scavenge tokens as well. And that's because the other way to score points is through recon. A recon card is chosen at random as part of setup, and these are scavenge sites that we're trying to create, or a path to, a harvest reaper, or an incubation system. What that means is, as I am laying tile out here, not only am I trying to get the right tiles to explore to do this, I'm also trying to put scavenge tokens on the right tiles. Like say I could have put this scavenge token on here instead of this one, to create these chains. Because for instance, like as you can see, I've already made this chain early in the game. A laboratory plus a junkyard plus a factory. Lab, junkyard, junkyard, factory means at the end of the game, I have made a path that leads to a harvest reaper. That's worth 5 points. But I want to complete these other chains as well, which means I'm actually trying to collect the right tiles for my missions and the right harvest tokens for my recon, and I'm trying to combine them in the right ways so I can be super efficient, because this is a race. You only get so many turns. So that's really what Posthuman is all about. Jen and I have really enjoyed it so far because it's interesting. It looks, at first glance, like a big, sprawling Arkham Horror-style adventure game, right? But it's really a Euro. It's driven by auctions. It's all about getting the right resources and getting them deployed correctly. The combat isn't tons of dice rolling. There's a little bit of dice, but instead it's a war of attrition by hand management of cards. And even the skill checks are more interesting than just rolling to see if you do well or not. So there's a lot really to recommend here. The narrative is actually funny. It's charming. You would think this is kind of a dark, dour, depressing world, but it actually has a sly sense of humor to it. And so it's always fun to get those little interactive narrative snippets that pop up every once in a while as well. If I had any complaints, I would say, for Jen's and my taste, maybe 15 rounds is a little bit on the long side. It's actually true that if you play in a certain way, you can actually trigger a big, epic final boss fight, and if you win, that can cause the game to end sooner, but that's tough to pull off. Most of the time, you're going to play through all 15 rounds, racing every step of the way, always trying to get the right tiles to complete the multiple things you're trying to do at any given time. And it should be tense right up to the end. And that, folks, is the rundown on Posthuman Saga. Thanks very much for watching. Have a very nice day. Talk to you later. So long. Bye-bye.